All right, so I just realized that my mic has been on mute, but I think you can hear me now. uh, I think you should be able to hear me now. So if you can hear me, just let me know in the comment that you can hear me loud and clear. Loud and clear. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining from. Say hello to me in the comment. How's everyone? Okay, looking for my slides. And can you hear me? If you can, just let me know in the comment. All right. Hi, Emmanuel. Thanks. Loud and clear. Thanks very much. All right. Thanks for letting me know. All right. Thank you for letting me know. I can see the comments coming in. Thanks for letting me know. Now, I wanted to do something for me. You can share this on your timeline. You can share this to any group that you belong to. Um, and if you can do it, I will truly be grateful and thankful if you can do that for me. So just go ahead and share the presentation or this live stream to whatever group or organization that you belong to on Facebook. And if you can also do it on your timeline, that would be also appreciated. Thanks, Nelson. I can see you. Thanks for joining. God bless you. Oh, share button is not active. So is that on the page or on the group? So I know that if you are joining from the group, it will be difficult to share. But if you are on any of the pages, whether it is Apple Mede, PhD Facebook page, or if it is in Life Excel Facebook page or SuccessConverge Facebook page, it should be shareable from there. So sorry about that if you can't share from where you're joining from. If you're joining on YouTube, you should be able to share. So just give a few seconds for us to try and get that sorted. If you can jump into the groups to get it shared, or jump into the pages. Oh, sorry, the group page and and YouTube. YouTube. Yeah, those are the places you probably will be able to share from. So if you can do that quickly, then we can take it from there. All right, thank you. Thanks again. All right, let's go. Let's go. So, to everyone who is joining on for the first time, my name is Ape Omede, and this is Life Excel's major program called SuccessConverge, which I want to welcome you to. If you don't know me, I'm a lecturer and a researcher, and also a youth development enthusiast. My life's vision and passion is to inspire institutional excellence in people. So I spend everything I do um, trying to inspire intentional excellence in people. That is what drives me, because I believe that excellence is a possibility. Excellence is a possibility. We live in a time and a generation where a lot of people um, have been told or been made to believe that for you to succeed or for you to become an excellent person, you have to do something that nobody has done before, do something extraordinary or challenge other people and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, the true essence of excellence is being better than you were yesterday, being better than you were yesterday, understanding and discovering what gifts and talents and potential that God has given to you, and then using that to live your best life every single day, depending on the grace and depending on the power, depending on the inspiration of the Word of God. And so, what I do with my life is to create a platform and create an opportunity for people all over the world to be able to access, the knowledge, the understanding, the insight that is necessary to live that kind of life where excellence is possible, where excellence is an everyday experience. And I can tell you that it's possible because when I look at my own life, I see excellence in every single day or every single activity that I get myself involved in. And that does not mean that I do not fail. And that is the reason why today's edition of SuccessConverge is very, very important. Now, excellence is when we talk about excellence, some people think that what that means is that there are no failures. What that means is that you've never failed in your life. That's not true. That you are an excellent person does not mean you do not have an encounter or an experience of excellence. Failure. The fact is that what makes you an excellent person is that you failed so many times, that you've learned so many times from them, that every lesson you've learned from your failures has an added value to your life in such a way that you never fail two times, you never fail again and again. Rather, you take lessons from each edition or event of failure in your life, and you make something great, make something beautiful, make something wonderful out of it. And that is what actually makes you an excellent person. So when I'm talking about excellence, I'm not and relating it to myself, I'm not trying to say that I've never failed in life before. I've failed several times, and everyone who some of the stories we're going to be sharing today will show you stories of people who have failed and how they eventually went on to excel. So in life excel, even though we talk about excellence, we are not failure averse, in the sense that we don't have any aversion from failing, because one of the reasons why people find it very hard to associate with failure is because of this fear of getting associated with failure. But at the end of the day, if you're someone who is fear averse, or failure averse rather, you find it very difficult to grow. You find it very difficult to improve. You find it very difficult to develop. And so I just hope that today's edition of Success Convert will be useful to everyone who's going to join today's session. So thanks very much one more time for joining, and I'm really, really appreciative of that. I believe that by now you've shared um, the stream, so I'm very, very grateful for that, and I can see more people coming onto the stream. Um, and I think it's good to just go. It's going to be a not too long session, I believe, but it's going to be useful to everyone who's going to join today. It's going to be useful. So you can get a cup of tea, cup of coffee, cup of juice, whatever it is that you want, cup of water, and just have it by your side, and let's relax and roll. So let me just take this off from here. It's not supposed to be part of. I don't know why it is showing. Hide until next person. Okay. Um, let's give me, um, All right, just give me a minute to deal with this. For hide from stream. So one of these tools I use is showing up here, and not meant to be part hide. Come on. All right, so that's good now. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at understanding failures. And I've given you a little bit of background already, so because it was just flowing inside of me that I've not even started sharing my slide, but I've started talking about some of things in my heart. Um, and that's the fact that some people think that when we talk about excellence, it means that there's never been anything to do with failure in that particular circumstance. But let me just make that emphasis again that when we talk about excellence, we're not talking about the absence of failure. We're talking about the ability to understand what failure is and transforming it to become a better version of yourself. And this is one characteristic that every excellent person have, that they understand failure and they transform it for their own good. You cannot be an excellent person if you don't have a story of failure. You cannot be an excellent person if you don't have a story of mistakes and mishaps and errors that you've encountered in the pursuit of your dream, in the pursuit of your vision, that you've learned from and have applied the lessons, and then those lessons helping you to become the better person that you've become. And so, because of that lack of understanding about the role that failure plays, or trying to understand what failure is actually all about, that is rampant in our society, rampant in the lives of a lot of people, and making them to run away from, trying out things. Because if you're someone who is afraid of failure, the automatic effect or impact of that is that you'll be afraid to try new things. You'll be afraid to, follow your heart, follow your dream, follow your vision, do what it is that God has created you to do, because you're so afraid of failure. I can tell you that failure is one of the major reasons why people are living a life of mediocre. It is one of the major reasons, why people are living below the standard that God has created them to live. Because, it is one of the reasons why people are not fulfilling purpose and destiny, because they are just simply afraid to, to try some things. And nobody, you don't want to hold anybody responsible for it. You can't even hold yourself responsible for that kind of mindset or attitude, because we all grew up as young people learning that failure is bad. That's just the fact. We all grew up as children learning that failure is bad, right? I remember when I was in primary school, I think that was primary three, and I wasn't well. I don't even consider myself to be brilliant. I only consider myself as someone who has been favored by grace, and this grace is upon the work that I do, and then multiplies the impact of the work that I do. So that's what I really consider myself to be, a person of grace that works hard and has the grace of God, impacting that work that he is doing. But this story happened when I was in primary three. So I had this teacher in my class that was so I don't even know which word to use, but what was happening was this. I was in this class and we're learning some of the subjects. One of them was Igbo language. And I'm not an Igbo. I grew up in Igbo land, but I'm not an Igbo. So Igbo hasn't is not my mother tongue. I only learned it. But before I learned it, I had just come to this school a year or thereabout. So I just relocated from north central of probably far north to the east. So from a place where they speak Hausa language to a place where they speak Igbo language, and just started in a new school where this language is taught as one of the subjects in the school. And every time we had this subject, I do very poorly in it. So instead of this teacher helping me by taking me through or encouraging me, what this teacher would end up doing was to smack me, smack the hell, in fact, out of me, if I were use that word, continuously. I suffered several smacking and all that. And what that did to me was that it affected my ability to believe in myself that I can actually speak Igbo very, very well. It started registering a failure signals in my brain, in my mindset about that particular subject. And it continued for a long while, but I was lucky that there was another teacher that I met who was totally different, totally opposite from this particular teacher, who was even giving us incentives for succeeding. So she breaks the class into groups and gives us assignments, and any of the groups that successfully completes the assignment she gave, um, and receives a kind of an incentive, a kind of a gift, a kind of something to motivate us. And I still remember the name of that teacher till today. Meanwhile, the one that was marking me, I can't even remember her name. I can remember her face and her structure and all that, but I can't remember her name. But the one that helped me to, be more confident in myself by, rewarding the success that we were achieving in the class. I could still remember her name. And why I'm telling this story is because many people encounter the first type of teacher that I talked about growing up from a very young age. And what those kinds of encounters do to us is that they make us become so fearful to fail, because when you grew up, you then grew up with this mindset that when you fail, there is going to be punishment. And I'm going to come to that later on again. It is something that has ravaged our society, that when people fail, they just feel that there's going to be a punishment meted to them just because they failed. And it now makes failure to become something that is very abhorrent in our society. Nobody wants to be associated with failure. But understanding the concept of failure is very, very important, very, very key if we're going to be a people of excellence. And this is what I hope that this session today will achieve as we proceed. So, I want to start with this man, Dr. Clarence Dennis. So, Dr. Clarence Dennis is the pioneer of a procedure called cardiopulmonary bypass, a pioneer of a medical procedure called pulmonary bypass, which is a medical procedure used when conducting an open heart surgery. And how it is done is that a machine is temporarily attached to the heart of the person that the surgery is being conducted on, to take over the function of the heart and the lungs. So the machine takes over the function of the heart and the lung. And then this allows the surgeon to be able to operate on the heart while keeping the patient's blood circulating and oxygen and also oxygenated. So there's continuous flow of blood and continuous flow of oxygen. So that is basically what the procedure does. It has to do with a machine that is able to play the role or the function of the heart and the lungs. And this procedure or this machine was created by Dr. Clarence Dennis. The first test for this machine was in 1951, when he was conducting open heart surgery. The first open heart surgery he was conducting with this particular machine on a young girl, 5-year-old girl. 5-year-old girl called Patty Anderson. And so they had everything connected and they kept going. And along the line, initially they thought that the young girl had just one hole in her heart. But when they opened up the heart, and they then realized that this little girl's heart had actually multiple holes in it. And so this particular machine that this man had created and was testing for the first time failed. And the little girl died in the process of that procedure. A month later, he decided to use this same machine again on another young child, a 2-year-old girl this time around. And unknowingly to them, one of his team members had tampered with the machine, and nobody knew. And in the process of trying to, operate on this second child again, the machine failed. It was later on they realized that someone had actually, adjusted some things on that machine without their knowing, and so the child died. And everybody looked at Clarence Dennis as a failure. To cut the whole story short, it took him 4 extra years to keep trying this machine, keep exploring with people who were in his team, with other doctors all over the world, and and they kept testing and trying. And it was after these 4 years that they were able to successfully, carry out that procedure, which is the cardiopulmonary bypass, bypassing the heart and the lung with a machine that is able to function like the heart and the lung. Now, today, as I'm talking with you, over 2 million heart surgeries are conducted every year using this procedure developed by Dr. Dennis. But going back to 1951, it was considered a failure. He had at least 2 deaths within the space of 1 month. He had 2 deaths with this particular machine, and it took him 4 years for him to be able to eventually come up with this particular machine. Everybody would call Dr. Clarence a failure, but today he is the father of cardiopulmonary bypass, because even though he failed, even losing the lives of his patients, trying out something, he never gave up. He never stopped trying. And that is because the kind of failure that Dr. Dennis was facing is a type of failure that we're going to discuss later on in the process of this conversation. Because all failures are not equal, all failures are not the same. And your ability to understand the kind of failure that you were encountering or you were facing will determine how you're going to respond to those events in your life, and if you're going to take the next step to be the person that God has created you to be. Now, this is the second person I wanted to talk about. Spence Ferguson, that's supposed to be Ferguson Silver, lived between 1931 to 2021. And Ferguson's story is very, very interesting as well. So Ferguson is a chemist who works with chemicals, different kind of chemicals. Also, on this particular day, Ferguson was in the lab trying to develop a sticky or a sticky chemical, a glue, basically was what he was trying to create. And as he was doing that, he kept mixing different chemicals, trying to get the exact consistency of the glue, but it was not working. He tried several combinations of chemicals to get the exact consistency, but it wasn't working. The glue wasn't sticking very well. So this guy would have concluded to himself to be a failure or to have failed in developing that particular glue that he was trying to create. But you know what? He told himself, this can still be used. This product can still be used. And so what he did was that he started using this glue, to to stick pads, memo pads together. When you have memo pads in the office, you write on, and then you stick it on each other to keep your memo together in one place. So this was what Ferguson did. Instead of looking at what he has done as a failure, he tried to look around for an opportunity to use. So he didn't throw away the failed glue, the failed chemical mixture that was not glued together. He didn't throw it away. He thought of what he could do with it. He said, okay, this glue, it cannot stick very well or form the kind of bond that I wanted to form between two objects, but probably it can be useful in another way. So he started using it to stick memos together. And then he mentioned it to his friend called Anthony Fry. And two of them came together and started a business from that particular glue that was not the lousy glue that was not sticking together. They started a business from it, and they called it Press and Peel Memo Pad. Press and Peel Memo Pad. That same year, they tried to push the business. This was happening in 1974. So between 1974 and 1977, they pushed it into the market, but they were not successful. It was 3 years later, in 1980, that eventually they succeeded. And they renamed it what we all know today as Post-it note. So if you use Post-it note, I have one here. Not even one, I have lots of them there, different colors. If you use this thing and you find it helpful, there is no workshop, training and workshop you go to, or product development session you go to, that people don't use sticky notes. In fact, I don't do without sticky notes. Everywhere, if you go to my computer in the office, everywhere is full of sticky notes. The man behind this would have been considered a failure, because originally he wasn't looking to create a Post-it note. He was looking to create a glue, but it turned out to be something else. So the way we look at success, or the way rather that we look at failure, is very, very critical. Because if we see it in the wrong light, in the wrong perspective, then it will hold us down for the rest of our life. It will hold us down for the rest of our life. So the question is, can anything good come out of understanding failures? Can anything good come out of understanding failure? Yes, I believe that good things can come out of our understanding of how failure works. The reason, the reason why people are afraid of talking about failure is because they don't understand it. The reason why people are afraid of trying new things is because they don't understand what it really means to fail. If you have a good understanding, or a better understanding, then your idea or your perspective will change. For example, we're in the Easter season. Everybody's talking about the death and the resurrection of Jesus. Every other person, including the closest disciples to Jesus, considered him a failure. His family members considered him a failure. His friends considered him a failure. His congregation, the people closest to him, considered him a failure. But Jesus himself had an understanding of what it meant to be subjected to what he went through. He knew that something will come out of that situation that people had called failure. And he knew that that which was going to come out will be transformational to him and to every man, to mankind in general, in the years to come. If Jesus had looked away from the joy that was set before him and didn't go through that so-called failure event, we wouldn't have been talking about Easter today. But it takes understanding to be able to try. It takes understanding to be able to take the next step. It takes understanding to be able to stand your ground in the face of failure. So I believe strongly that we can learn from failure. I believe strongly that we can learn from failure. Now, failure is not a definition of who you are. Failure is not a definition of who you are, because this is the mistake that most people make. Most people think that their failure is what defines them. But if you understand that failure is an event just in time, or that failure is an outcome that deviates from your desired result, then your approach to failure will change. Your approach to failure will change. You are not defined by the failures that you face, because all the failures that come your way are simply a set of events that happen in time. Set of events that happen in time. When you set a goal and it doesn't come to pass, it doesn't mean that you are that goal that failed. It's just an event that didn't come to pass. When you set an expectation that didn't come to pass, it doesn't mean that you are that expectation that didn't come to pass. It's simply an event that did not come to pass. So you need to redefine your concept, your idea about failure, because it is not what defines who you are. It is just an event in time, and it is just an outcome that deviates from the desired result. You have something you desire, right? So you are applying for a grant, and you put all your effort into it. You did your best. You expected that it would be positive, and it came out negative. Fine. It doesn't mean that situation or that circumstance or that event has to define you. It is simply something that you've targeted that did not come to pass. You were planning to start a business. You tried to look for money everywhere. You went to the bank, submitted a very powerful proposal, and yet the bank rejected you. That doesn't define you. As a matter of fact, it might even be the problem of the bank from failing to see the potential that you carry. Though there may be something wrong, but it is also possible that there may be something that what is wrong might not necessarily be you or your proposal, but what is wrong is actually with the bank for not seeing the future in your proposal. So if that is a situation and you end up crying yourself to death, end up crying yourself to mediocrity, end up crying yourself to fail, to stopping yourself from trying, then you can see what you're denying yourself. And this is the reason why it's very dangerous to conclude on a failure event. So there is this perception, failure perception, that we have in the society about failure, because people try to define us by the failure experiences. So when they see someone who tries something and fails, they just lambast him. And something happened during the African Nations Cup. There is this particular player, which many of us know, plays in England, who, for one reason or the other, before that, everybody, was praising, everybody was doing he was good player. Everybody knows that he is a good player, has been playing very well, but for one reason or the other, during the African Nations Cup, performed below expectation. And everybody was lambasting this guy. Everybody was vilifying this guy. Everybody was calling him names. You can imagine what will happen to that guy if, let me just say, you can imagine that this was exactly what was even making him to underperform, because he knew that everybody's perception about him not, scoring goals or not giving passes very well or whatever that was happening, he knew that the perception of everybody about him for all those things was negative. And so how do you think he would respond when a ball is passed to him? So the perception that people have about failure is something that is truly, truly, truly pulling people down. And so there is need for what is called psychological safety, where you be in a situation that you know that people will respond or react to your failure in a positive way. But the society we live today is a society that is full of judgment and castigation. People feel that the society that they live in and the people around them will always react negatively towards them when they fail. that people will judge them when they fail. And so there is this lack of psychological safety that people have. And what that does is that it makes people to continue to suppress their ability to talk about failure. It makes you to suppress, undermine the ability to talk about failure. Nobody wants to talk about failure. Nobody wants to be associated with failure. Because I know that if I talk about my failure in the public, they will call me names. They will judge me. They will castigate me. And so whenever I encounter failure, it is already in my head that people around me will hate me for that action of failure. And so, why would I want to face failure? Why would I want to go into something that I know might not work when I know that the consequence, societal consequence of it, is that people will call me name and castigate me and pull me down? So, people keep running away from things that challenge them. People keep running away from things that could lift them up from mediocrity to excellence. People could keep running away from taking the next step to being who they are supposed to be. There's a lady you're supposed to talk to. You can't talk to her because you're afraid that she will say no. There is a guy you're supposed to open up to, but you don't want to open up to him because you feel that he might take advantage. There is a company you need to apply to, but you feel that your CV is not good enough. Come on, you need to know that failure that you experience do not define you, and the society can say whatever they want to say. You need to push yourself to a zone of psychological safety where you know that it doesn't it whatever happens is not a factor of what people think or what people say about where you're going. Without that, we'll continue to run away from failure. Now, how does failure happen? Understanding how failure happens is very, very important because failure doesn't just happen. It takes time and then it takes action or inactions from your side or from the systems that you play in for failure to happen. It takes the people around you or the people who are not around you. It takes the things you do or the things that you do not do for failure to happen. And understanding it will help you to know how to navigate the future. So there are three stages of failure occurrence that I want to share with us as we proceed. Three stages of failure occurrence that we need to be very, very mindful of. The first is the failure of vision. And this is the lowest. I mean, if anyone is at this stage, the person is still far because you cannot even understand failure if you're still failing in vision. No, there is no way you can. There is no way you can understand failure if you're still failing in vision. Okay? So the first is the failure of vision. And this is when you are not clear about what you want to do with your life or what your personal why is. This has to do with when you do not know what you want out of life. When you're not feeling purpose, when you're not feeling meaning in your life and your destiny, then this is the failure of vision. And that is the very first stage of failing. For failure to happen, it has to start from that point where there is no vision. where there is no understanding of your why, where you do not feel purpose and meaning in your life. And if you are at this stage, the most important thing you can do is to look inward and focus on your well-being. Focus on what is inside of you. Focus on what gifts and talent, potential God has given to you, and start working them out. That is the only thing that can take you out of this. But some people have moved from the failure of vision. They have vision, they have purpose, they know what they want to do with their life, but still, they still fail. Okay. So some people are not in a place where they don't have an understanding of vision or what they want to do with their life. They've gone past that stage, but they still fail. And when this happens, it could be as a result of the second stage of vision, of failure, which is the failure of tactics. So when we talk about the failure of tactics, it has to do with when you know what you want, but don't have a clear or effective plan for achieving it. You know what you want in life, but you don't have a clear or effective plan for achieving it. Of course, you will fail. If you want to be a parent and you don't have a clear cut understanding of how, a plan on how to be a parent, of course you fail in that journey. If you want to be wealthy, if you want to make an A in the class, good, this is great vision. Wealthy, good vision. Build a house, good vision. Start a business, good vision. These are good vision. You've passed the failure of vision, so you're not struggling with the failure of vision. You've moved up a stage up, but you need to have a plan. You need to have a tactics. You need to be able to um, have a clear and effective idea on how you're going to achieve any of those things you have in mind. But sometimes people have only vision, they don't have the tactics. And so they will still fail in whatever it is that they are pursuing. They will still fail. I've seen a lot of people who want to do some things and they come and talk to me. And when they talk to me, when I talk with them, the thing I realize that's the problem is the lack of tactics, lack of clear cut and effective plan on how to achieve that particular goal, that particular vision. Every time people send me an email or send me a message, a DM on WhatsApp or on Facebook, I've applied for a scholarship several times, 100 times, 50 times, 20 times, 10 times, because I want to study abroad, but I'm not getting it. And I ask them, what is the clear and effective plan that you have put in place? Do you understand what plans need to be in place for you to win a scholarship? And then I realized that nothing is in them. It's just vision that they have. Your vision is not complete without tactics. And that is the reason why people get frustrated with vision, because they keep failing. They have dreams, they have ideas, but they don't understand that ideas and visions and plans must be followed by tactics for it to be a reality. And then when they fail in that vision and people begin to judge them, they begin to fall into the zone of lack of psychological safety and begin to withdraw from their vision, begin to withdraw from their plan, and then they end up becoming mediocres. The third is the failure of strategy. Now, this is where it becomes complex. This is when you have the plan, you have the vision, you have the idea, you have the concept, you have the dream, you understand everything you want to do with your life. You have purpose, you have meaning for living, and then you have tactics as well. You have strategy. I mean, you have strategy, you have plan, you have you've put everything that needs to be in place, but you still fail. You have a plan, and you followed it, but you still do not achieve your goal. And this is usually as a result of other factors that may be affecting your success. And this is very, very important that we understand when we talk about failure, that you could have everything in place. Very, very important to understand. You could have everything in place, clear vision, clear meaning and purpose for your life, clear personal why, good plans, effective plans, and still fail because sometimes some things are beyond your control. Some things are out of your control. And when things that are out of your control, interact with your vision and your ideas and your plan, the plan and the vision may fail. But still, that doesn't make you a failure. But still, that doesn't make you a mediocre. But still, that doesn't make you someone who cannot succeed. It is simply a failure of strategy, of things that are out of place for you to handle, out of place for you to control. And they happen. But you know what? There are people who are not even struggling with vision. There are people who are not even struggling with plan, or if I mean plan and effective, organization and all that. They are only struggling with things that are out of their control, and they fail as a result of that. And then they close shop and stop trying. They close the business and stop trying. They stop applying for scholarship. They stop going to other banks. They tried one or two or three banks, and the banks say, no, sorry, we cannot give you money because you don't have enough collateral for us. And they stop going to the banks. They tried the first business, they tried the second business, third business, they all fail. And they stop trying other businesses. Look at someone like Thomas Edison. History told us that he failed 10,000 times. And when he was asked, he said, I did not fail 10,000 times. I only learned 10,000 ways of not making this to work. He had the vision, he had the plan, put everything to work, but still something beyond him was not working out for him very well. But he kept pushing. What most people would do would be to give up, and that's just it. So you need to know at what stage of failure that you are so that you know how to respond effectively. Are you at the stage of failure of vision, or are you at the stage of failure of tactics? Or are you at the stage of failure of strategy, where things are, where endless number of things, events, actions, activities, external, internal, come together to impact on your vision, impact on your dream, impact on your plan, and the impact is so enormous that they make you fail in that which you want to achieve. It's very, very important that you understand what stage that you are when it comes to failure. So that takes me to the concept of good and bad failure. But before I say that, people have this misconception rather, about big and small failure. Hey, this failure is a big failure. This failure is a small failure. Now, failure is failure. There's nothing like big or small failure. The reason why we have those concepts is because of, probably due to the magnitude of what is affected by that failure. All right. So there is nothing like big or small failure. The only reason why we have that idea, I want to say it again, is because of the magnitude, of the impact of that failure on us, or on the things around us, on our vision, on our dream, and so on and so forth. So when the impact is so much, we say it's a big failure. But when the impact is little, then we say it's a small failure. But in real sense, failure is failure. Failure is failure. There is nothing like big failure or small failure. If you fail, you have failed. It's as simple as that. If you succeed, you've succeeded. So in the real sense, there is nothing like big or small failure. But and if we put it in perspective, we understand that there can only be an angle to whatever failure that we are facing. That it is either going to be a good failure or a bad failure. So instead of looking at failure from the angle of the size of the failure, you look at whether it is a good failure or a bad failure. And if you do not learn anything from your failure event, if you do not learn anything from your failure experiences, then that failure is a bad failure. It doesn't matter whether the effect is on you alone or the effect is on you, your family, your society, your business, your country, and so on and so on. Because a failure might just be you alone. It might just be 10 people. I say, oh, this one is a small failure. Or the failure might be you, your family, your company, your region, and so on and so forth. And this one is a big failure. No. Whether it affects you alone, the question is, what did I learn from this process? Whether it affects you and your family, the question is, what did I learn from this failure process? So good failures are those that bring us value, new information, and knowledge about ourselves and about the process that we went through in a way that we couldn't have gained those values, those knowledge, those new information in any other way. So bad failure is failure that you didn't learn anything from. Good failure is the one that allows you to develop new knowledge, new information, new ideas, new insight, new concept about yourself, and then about the process that is involved in that scholarship process. So I always, go back to the scholarship process. When I started the process, I didn't know anything, and I kept failing and failing and failing and failing and failing. But the most important thing was that as I was failing, I was learning. I was developing new ideas. I was developing new insight into what it takes to win a scholarship. To me, all those rejections were what were good failures. When I was looking for someone to marry, the same thing was happening. Went into a relationship, did everything I could do, put all the effort I could, and it failed. Not because I was not serious. And of course, I did a post on this on Facebook a few days back. I did everything possible, everything I could do as a good guy. By the grace of God, I came to know God in time, not too early per se, but I had this faith. So I grew up with this fear of what is good and bad. So even in my relationship, it was like that. I wasn't relating with the mind to sleep with anybody or to do any of those things. So I was very, very serious with it, but it failed. The first failed, the second failed, the third failed, and in each of the process, I was learning. I was learning because there are a lot of things, especially when it comes to the issue of relationship. There are a lot of things about vision, about dream, about hearing God, about knowing, one person that God has created for you. If you miss the person, there are a lot of things that are out there, and people are making lots of mistakes in that process. But you know what? For each of those failures, I learned. Say, okay, I'm taking off this and this and that in regards to the woman I want to marry. Move to the next one. The same thing happened. So, new insight. Okay, this and this and that. Tick off. The third one, the same process. This and this and this and that. ticked them off and moved on. When I was eventually in the right relationship that was supposed to be, it was easy, easy peasy. It was easy. There was no stress, no issues, no struggle, nothing, nothing. And this year, that relationship, that marriage relationship will be 10 years of bliss. We've had our challenges, but we're still moving on. And what I'm trying to say is that those failures I was having didn't define me. They were not bad failures. To me, they were good failures because I made sure that for each of them, I learned something, at least one thing. So, what are you learning from each of the failures that you've been encountering? Now, people fail for different reasons. People fail for different reasons. It is very, very important to understand the reason why you are failing. Very, very important to understand the reasons why you are failing. And the reason why you're failing might either be praiseworthy reasons, and that is one way you know if you are failing good fail, if your failures are good failures. Or the reasons could be blameworthy. And if you're turning towards the blameworthy reasons, then it is a bad failure. It's a bad failure. So think about your failures as we go through these reasons. It will help you understand whether you should call yourself a failure or whether these are just events that are happening, a deviation from what you expected to happen in your goal and in your dream. All right. So I'll start with the praiseworthy reasons, and then we keep going up. And this is a spectrum that was developed by the Harvard by someone in Harvard Business School. So I want to give credit to that. But this is not my original thought, but it's something that has given me a lot of insight about understanding failures, and I wanted to share it with you. So the first is exploratory testing. When you're conducting an experiment, when you're taking a step to expand knowledge or investigate the possibility, but that leads to an undesired result, is an exploratory testing. It is not failure, and it is a praiseworthy reason to fail. Because in your circle, ask yourself in your circle, how many people go out to explore something new, something that's never been done, something that will lead to a new idea, something that will lead to a new concept? How many people in your circle do you know go? It is very, very rare. So people who are discoverers, people who are visionaries, people who are pioneers like Clarence Dennis, like Spence Ferguson Silver, who go on, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, people who go on to discover new things and new ideas. This is the reason they give to themselves. They give to themselves this reason of exploratory testing. They say, I want to go out and test this thing. Nobody has done this thing before. Let me go and test it. And then they go and test and it fails. My friends, if you are in that category and you experience that kind of thing, you are not a failure. You are not a failure. If the reason why you are failing is because you are exploring new frontiers, is because you are exploring new dimensions of faith, you're exploring new dimensions of truth, you're exploring new dimensions of impact, you are not a failure. Is a praiseworthy reason. Number two, hypothesis testing, where you go out to conduct, to prove an idea or a design, and then it fails. So this is a step lower than exploratory testing. This is a hypothesis. Someone has said that if you go and learn data science, that you will become a data analyst. For example, if you go and learn data science, you will become a data analyst in the next 3 months. That's a hypothesis. And then you pull yourself out from, you could pull yourself up and you go out there and you start learning data science. You finish the learning, you invest time, you invest money, you invest everything possible to become a data scientist. And then after that, you start looking for a data analyst job. You try the first month, try the second month, try the third month. Remember, they say after 3 months of learning data science, you become a data analyst. And then it doesn't happen. You try the fourth month, it doesn't happen. What you're doing is hypothesis testing. And failing by testing that hypothesis doesn't make you a failure. It doesn't make you a failure. You've moved a step higher than people who are not even trying anything at all. So are you someone who is out there exploring new ideas? Or are you someone who hears things that think this thing can work and you go out and try it? Or you're someone who is not trying, you're not exploring new ideas, you're not exploring ideas that has been existing that you want to prove. So if the reason you're failing is because you're putting to test an idea or concept that has worked for other people and it doesn't work for you, you are not a failure. Because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean you are a failure. There may be other external factors. Remember how we talked about the stages of failure? It may be simply a failure of strategy. There might be some other things that you need to put in place or to learn to actually be able to achieve that. Third reason for failure that is also praiseworthy is uncertainty, which is a lack of clarity about future events, which causes an individual to take seemingly reasonable actions that produce undesired results. Lack of clarity about, so, an example is this marriage thing, right? That's a typical example. Another example is going to a school to study a particular course. Another example is to take the bold step to start a business. Another example is to take a bold step to relocate to another city. You don't know what will happen if you relocate to a new city. You don't know what will happen if you start a new business. You don't know what will happen if you marry him or marry her. You don't know what will happen if you study that course in the university. You don't know what will happen if you decide to change profession. All of these are surrounded by uncertainties, but there are people who, out of those uncertainties, still take a step, take actions, reasonable actions, but still the result they desire will not come to pass. You start the business, and then tomorrow government comes up with a new policy and says, um, sorry, the tax for this particular business has increased, and so you end up spending money paying tax than saving money to increase the business or to grow the business. You relocate to a country, and then as soon as you relocate to that country, the laws, immigration laws, of that country, maybe you relocate as a student, and they tell you that from student visa you can move to a permanent residency. You relocate to that country, and then 2 years down the line, while you're still studying, the policy of the country changes, and they say that students can no longer, convert their visa to permanent residency. You start a relationship with a guy or a lady, everything looks promising, and then 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, somebody pulls out from the relationship. You start a course to study, you start in the university to study a particular course, hoping to become an engineer or a doctor, and then along the line you graduate, and there is no job. 5 years down the line, you can't find a job as a medical personnel or an engineer, but you've taken the step. You've jumped into uncertainty. You've dared the unknown, and things haven't worked the way you expected them to work. You are not a failure. There are people who would rather run away than subject their lives to trying things that they are not certain about, than trying things that they don't have clarity about. Is it always good to try things that you don't have clarity about? Sometimes it may not be. But if you always run away from things because you don't have clarity about them, you will continue to live a life of mediocrity. You will continue to live a life of mediocrity. So, because of our time, let me quickly rush through this. Process complexity. A process composed of many elements breaks down when it encounters novel interaction. So, you have things in place. You have the system all organized. You know what to do and all that. But when what you when what you know how to do encounters a new challenge, they break down. You begin to realize that the knowledge you think you have is nothing. The knowledge you think you have is nothing compared to the challenges that you're going to face. Task challenge. An individual faces a task too difficult to be executed reliably every single time. So if you're taking up a task that is too difficult to do because probably you don't have the capacity to execute that job every time, you encounter failure. But now you're leaving the praiseworthy zone, you're beginning to go into the blameworthy zone. So if you're exploring, if you're hypothesizing, if you're dealing with uncertainty, if you're dealing with complex processes, if you're dealing with a challenging task, you know all these are praiseworthy reasons why anybody can fail. But now, when we talk about process inadequacy, a competent individual adhering to a prescribed but faulty or incompetent process, this is where we begin to have problem, right? This is where we begin to have problem. You are competent, you have the capacity, but your process is wrong. Your process is incomplete. Your process is inadequate. So it's like taking a square peg and putting it in a round hole. This is where you begin to ask yourself, how does my skill fit into the business I want to start? How does my vision fit into the life of that lady? How does my vision fit into the life of that guy? How does my vision for my children fit into relocating to another country or relocating to another state? How does my vision for life fit into switching from being a speaker to being a business person, or from switching from a business person to being a speaker? Do I understand the process that is involved in that? So you might be competent as an individual, but if you're dealing with a process that is incompetent or complete or faulty, you're going to fail. And so, if you're failing as a result of process inadequacy, you are moving to the blameworthy zone. And the reason why people begin to feel angry for failing. Because before you try anything, you need to be able to check the process that is involved in that and the competence you have for engaging in that particular process. The next is lack of ability. An individual does not have the skills, the conditions, or the necessary training to execute a job. So, if you don't have the necessary skill, the training, or the conditions to achieve something in your life, why do you think you would achieve it? Why do you think you would achieve it? You've never for one day learned how to write. You've never for one day learned how to design. You've never for one day learned how to talk to someone you've not seen before. And you expect that when you just go for a conference, your mouth will open and start talking blah 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 blah. No, it doesn't work like that. So when you go to that kind of environment and you see that you are always standing by yourself, nobody to talk to, it's a failure on your part because you have refused to pick up the skills, the conditions, or the training that you needed to be able to network appropriately in that particular environment or in that particular situation. Inattention. When an individual fails because they don't pay attention to what is supposed to be done. There's a specification on how to do certain things. There are rules and guidance on how to do certain things, but somebody is not paying attention. Somebody is not thinking about the process. You need to sit down and think about every step you want to take and ask yourself, do I have the skill that is required? Do I have the training that is required? Am I in the right condition of mind that is required? Is the process right? Is the process complete? Is this the right time for me to do it? What are the things that I might likely encounter that I'm not prepared for? This is what it means to pay attention. And lots of people fail because they don't pay attention. They don't ask these questions. They don't ask the right question about their skills and talents and potentials and how it fits into what they want to do. And if the process, the process is the process that they need to follow is in place, is complete for them to be able to follow it, or is there anything missing in the process that might lead to the failure of that ambition that they have? So inattention is a blameworthy reason for failing. Is a blameworthy reason for failing. And then the last is deviance, where an individual chooses to violate a prescribed process or practice, and you think you're going to fail. So because there are principles, okay? There are principles in life. There are principles in life. And if we deviate from principles of success, we're going to fail. Whether it is success in marriage, success in ministry, success in business, success in career, success in whatever it is that in personal life, spiritual life, and so on and so forth. There are principles that guide these things. If we deviate from them, then failure will definitely happen. And if those failure happens, they are definitely bad type of failures. Remember, bad and good type of failures. So where are you on the spectrum of failure? Are you on the praiseworthy spectrum, section of the spectrum, or are you on the blameworthy section of the spectrum? A few more slides, and I'll be out of your face. So, is everyone getting me so far? Before I go on, thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for all the comments. Much appreciated. I want to believe that everyone is following the conversation. Now, as I begin to round up, we've talked about, we introduced good and bad failures, right? We introduced good and bad failures. I want to begin to round up with this. So, all the good failures are categorized into what is called intelligent failures. And this is because they provide valuable new knowledge, like I said initially, that can help you as an individual or an organization to leap ahead in life and ensure future growth. So when you fail, what I want you to do is this. When you fail, what I want you to do is this. Ask yourself, did this failure provide me with any new knowledge, valuable knowledge, as an individual or for my organization? Will this knowledge help me to leap ahead? And does it provide me with opportunity for future growth? Because all good failures would always do that for you or your organization. All good failure would always do that for you or your organization. So, failures in this category can rarely be considered good because they do these things that I've mentioned. They help you to develop new knowledge, help you to leap forward, and help you to grow. Now, how do you recognize intelligent failures? This is very, very helpful or very, very important. How do I know if the failure that is happening in my life is a good one and it's an intelligent one? Five things. One, if the failure that you're encountering is taking place in a new territory, then it is an intelligent failure. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Do people have do people know how to achieve the result that you're trying to achieve? If the answer is no, then that means that that failure is taking place in a new territory. Is happening in a new dimension because people are not even trying it. If there are people trying it, you might be just among the first set of people who are trying it, making it to happen. So you ask yourself, do people know how to achieve the result that I'm trying to achieve? Okay. Do people know how to achieve the result that I'm trying to achieve? That's the first, right? The second, it is opportunity driven. How to recognize intelligent failure. Number two, it is opportunity driven. Is there a meaningful opportunity worth pursuing in that? Because some of us might be wasting our time pursuing things that it doesn't give any value to you. There's no opportunity in it. It's just a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. You don't sit down to analyze. That is why people are not willing to move on in life or try new things, because people who fail, they are always failing because they've assessed the situation, they've assessed the circumstance, and they feel that the opportunity in that thing that they are trying to attempt is worth pursuing. So if I am pursuing a goal, if I'm pursuing a vision and I know it is worth pursuing and I'm failing, no matter how many times you call me a failure, it is none of my business. It is none of my business. All right. If I know that this thing that I'm pursuing is worthy of that pursuit, you can call me names when I fail in pursuing it, but it's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop me from keep pursuing it. The reason why people give up and begin to call themselves failure, or allow people to call them failure, is because they are pursuing a vision or pursuing a dream that is not worth pursuing. And when that happens, you easily give up on your dream, on your goal. Number three, informed by prior knowledge. Okay, so how do I recognize intelligent failures? Number one, it takes place in a new territory, new dimension, something new people haven't tried. If there have been people who have tried it, there are very few of them. Secondly, it is opportunity driven in the sense that I can see value in what I'm pursuing so that I'm not afraid of following that dream or that vision. Number three, have I done my homework? Do I have the available and do I have the available and do I have the relevant knowledge and skill that is needed to carry out that ambition or carry out that goal or pursue that dream? Do I have the relevant knowledge or the skills that are needed to do that? So, is there any information that I need? The information might be about myself and my skills and talent. The information might be about the likely challenges that may be posed on my way to trying to pursue that dream or pursue that vision. Okay, so if I don't have skill, if I don't have the skill, if I don't have the knowledge, if I don't have the expertise, and I still go ahead and pursue that goal and I fail in it, then it is a bad failure. It is a bad failure. Number four, as small as possible. So One mistake that many people also make is that when they are pursuing a new dream or pursuing a new goal, they don't take it one step at a time. They put in everything into it. So there's a new business in town, fine. That doesn't mean you should just take 10 million and put into it. You can start with 1 million. You can start with 2 million. You are a public speaker. You know you're gifted, you're talented, and all that. That doesn't mean that you wake up one day and start going to the stadium to host event. And then when you host the event and then nobody comes and then you start crying. You can start with a small room of 20 people. If you successfully achieve that, then you can move to the next one. But if you fail, this is why it is important to start as small as possible. If you fail, you don't call yourself a failure because the impact, remember, people always relate to failure with the size of the impact on them. So the impact in this case will be minimal, but at the same time, you have tested something, you've tried something. Will people come to this event or not? When we started Life Excel many years ago, we started with a charity event called Love to the Loveless. We will always we print this bookmark and then print it with beautiful bookmark with pictures and some writings and all that, and then we'll give it to our friends and we request for a minimum of a certain amount. I think maybe 50 naira or something like, or 20 naira. I can't remember. This was 2008 now, long time ago. So we'll give it out as a free gift, but we'll request a donation of $50, 50 naira. And we started doing that. And as we were doing it, people who took those bookmarks started then asking questions about what Life Excel is and how they can become part of it. Before we knew it, people started joining. As people started joining, we started thinking of what next can we do? Okay. And then we expanded to having small meetings, small leadership groups, leadership meetings, once in a while. From there, we expanded to having events that 10, 20 people, will come. From there, we grew to where we have events of hundreds of young people come together. But it was a small step each day. And this is how you know that your failure is an intelligent failure, because the impact of the failure is very minimal because you're taking the least step in the process. You're taking the least step in the process, such that the impact of failure is very minimal. The last is, do I learn from the process? And I've hammered on this a lot. Learning from the process is a key factor in recognizing if your failure is an intelligent failure or not. If you're not learning from it, then the failure is not an intelligent failure. All right, so now basic failures. So most failures in this category can indeed be considered bad. So all the bad failures that we've mentioned, those are the failures that you're not learning from, those are the failures that are not growing you, those are the failures that came as a result of the blameworthy reasons. Remember, deviation, inattention, lack of ability, and so on and so forth. So all those failures that happen as a result of those blameworthy reasons are referred to as basic failures, and they are categorized as bad failures because they involve deviation from the specifications, in how to do things. There is a process and principle of how to achieve success. So if you deviate from them, you're going to fail, and such failure is a bad failure, and they're called basic failure. And I'm rounding up. So you recognize them because they take place in non-territory. So these are things that people have done. You don't have any reason really to fail in them. You don't have any reason to fail. The only reason why you're failing in them is because you are not paying attention, or you are simply deviating from the process, or you've not taken time to check if you are capable of doing that particular task, or that following up with that vision or that dream of yours. Or maybe there is process inadequacy, or things that you can actually control, but you are not taking full attention and giving to that particular process. And they happen from a single cause. It's just one thing that is responsible for it. It's not a collection of things happening together. So remember, when we talk about the stages of failure, The failure of strategy is a collection of things, a lot of things happening all at the same time. Okay, so maybe you have a dream to graduate, and you get admission into a university and you start progressing, and then suddenly the person who is funding you dies, or the person who is providing for you suddenly decides not to provide your fees again, and then before you know it, you fell ill, god forbid you fell ill, um and you couldn't study as hard as you wanted to again. um Things coming together and interacting with your dream and your vision in such a way that you cannot control, that's a different case. But if it is just one thing, a single cause that you can actually handle or actually control, and it still results with failure, then that's a basic and a bad failure. So how do you recognize bad failure? One, it is happening in a non-theory. It's not as if there are no examples for you. If you're struggling to be something that people have already become, say for example, I'm an animal scientist and I'm still struggling to be an animal scientist when there are thousands of animal scientists out there succeeding that I can see as examples. So things that have models, you have model speakers, you have model businessmen, you have model ministers, you have model teachers, you have model whatever it is, you have they are there out, looking for even people to mentor, but still you can't succeed in any of those when you think that this is what you want to do. And then, thirdly, mostly driven by human idiosyncrasies. Basic failures, bad failures are driven by human idiosyncrasies. For example, inattention, neglect. Some people can be very neglective of things. Sometimes it's something like overconfidence, being too confident about things. It might be something like faulty assumptions, making assumptions that are not even real, assumptions that you cannot back up with any evidence, and so on and so forth. So if you find yourself in any of those, then you are facing bad failure, and you need to find a way to address that. But before you discount yourself as a failure, you need to ask yourself these three reasons. Because in the midst of all these things, everything still boils down to you as a person. And the first thing I want you to ask yourself is this: Have I, am I struggling with psychological safety? Remember, psychological safety, like we said when we started, is the feeling that people around me will judge me. People around me will discount me. People around me will neglect me. People around me will say negative things about me. So in my head, I don't want to try anything that I know will fail. I don't want to get involved with anything that I know will not work. Okay? So if you are in that situation, then there is something wrong. You need to ask yourself if you are struggling with the issue of psychological safety, and you need to um do your best to move away from a negative psychological safety um, landscape to a positive psychological safety landscape where people you surround yourself with are people who understand that they are also humans, they also fail, and they support you whenever you fail. They don't judge you, they don't pull you down, but they support you. Second, are the reasons why I am failing blameworthy or praiseworthy? That's the second question you need to ask yourself before you discount this, because you might actually be failing as a result of praiseworthy reasons that we have listed. Exploring, hypothesizing, just a period of uncertainty, even though you knew what you wanted to do. You have the skills, but maybe some novel interactions with your vision. There's an encounter with things that are beyond your control. So you might be failing as a result of praiseworthy reasons. So before you discount yourself, you need to ask yourself, why am I failing? What are the reasons why I'm failing? And then number three, you need to ask yourself, are my failures good or bad? So even though your failure might be praiseworthy, might be coming from praiseworthy reasons, you might not be learning from them. And any failure that you do not learn from, it becomes a bad failure. If you're not growing in it, if you're just doing things because people are doing it, and you're not growing in anything new, then there is a problem. Right. So when you fail, whether it is intelligent failure or basic failure, one thing that you owe yourself is to perform a failure analysis. One thing you can do for yourself is to perform what I call failure analysis. Number one, review the process again. Go through the entire process from the start to the finish and map out everything that could have gone wrong. That's the second thing. Brainstorm the entire process and then find out what happened. Okay, find out what happened. If a business fails, don't just pack and go. Sit down and ask yourself, okay, what really happened? Is it that my business model was wrong? Is it that I didn't identify the right customers? Is it that my product, something is wrong with my product? Is it my pricing? Is something wrong with my pricing? Is something wrong with my design, product design? So myriad of things might have been wrong with the entire business plan or business process. A lot of things might have gone wrong. There are things that you might have missed. So instead of just, closing up the case and say that's the end of it, you need to sit down and do a failure analysis. And it is in the process of the failure analysis that you now learn new things. When we talk about learning from failure, it is when you sit down and ask yourself these questions and be sincere about them that you learn. Review the process, brainstorm the potential failure modes, to help you identify the root causes, list potential effect of each failure, seek help with the root causes. So when you identify what those root causes are, seek help. Is it to learn new skill if it's as a result of a skill, or if it's as a result of a skill? Is it to learn to network or develop new network? It might be that you just need to connect with one person and then that will be the end of the story. Is it you need to develop um new product that will suit your customer. So you need to just understand what is the problem, and then you need to seek help with the root cause of that particular problem. Then, when you find what the root causes are, develop an action plan. Develop an action plan. Develop an action plan. But don't just develop action plan. Act on your action. Act on the act. So take sorry act on your plan rather. Act on your plan. Take action on those plans. All right, not just developing them and keeping them, but taking action on them is very, 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 very critical. Very, very critical. So let me go through them again. One, review the process. Two, brainstorm potential failure modes. List the potential effects of each failure. Seek help with the root causes of those failures. Develop an action plan and then take an action. And this is where a coach comes in. This is where you need someone to coach you. So when we talk about coaching, people think that someone is looking for a way to take money from another person and so on and so forth. What you don't understand is that we ourselves we also have our own coaches. I have what is it called? Programs, training programs I buy from people who are ahead of me that I want to learn from. I buy their products and I go through the process. So when you see some things happen in the lives of certain people, you might not know what is really happening in the secret. So some of the sacrifices they are making. And you also need to make some of those sacrifices. So if you go through the process of failure analysis and you really think that you need help, go and seek help. If it is to pay for a training, do that. If it's to pay for mentoring or joining an accountability group, whatever it is, go ahead and do it, because at the end of the day, you'll be doing yourself good. So, my last slide. No matter what happens, know that you are not defined by your failure. No matter what happens, know that you are not defined by your failure. Your failure is not you. You are not your failure. Your failures are simply events just in time, outcomes of events that were deviated from the main goal or the main objective. and there are reasons why they happen. If the reasons are praiseworthy, they are intelligent failures, and you've learned the process, you've learned from the processes, you've learned from the situation, the event, and you're moving on with those lessons to make great impact. So don't let any of those hold you back. Don't let any of those be a limitation to you. Don't let any of those, stop you from being the person that you were created to be. There's still great future ahead of you. There's still great opportunity ahead of you. There's still many things that you can achieve in your life and with your life. And there's no failure in this life that is enough to hold you back. There's no failure that is strong enough to put you down. So I hope that a few understanding of failures, why they happen, the stages at which they happen, the reasons why they happen, and the types of failure, and how you can analyze them that we've shared in this session today has been very helpful to you. I hope that you go out of this session with some of these ideas and use them to transform your life. So I just want to thank you for joining me again in this edition of Success Convert. Very, very appreciative of that. As usual, I cannot be here without you. And so I really, really want to thank you for finding time to join. And I hope that this session has been very helpful to you. And so thanks very much for joining, and have a blessed Saturday and the rest of your day, wherever time you're watching the replay. God bless you, and let's continue to make excellence come on in our time and our generation. So that's where I come to the end of today's session. I'll just stay back for a few minutes and see if there's any question online before I sign off completely. Thanks, Emmanuel. God bless you. Always a blessing to have you too. Thanks everyone that's joined today's session. Really, really appreciate it. God bless you. Really, really appreciate it.